from Anti-Fragile Physical Therapy. I want to take some time today to show you hip stretches that I really like to give to my clients who have pain in their back and their hips, general stiffness from lots of sitting, lots of standing, all kinds of things. So for this, you do need some specific equipment, not really equipment, but something that's very sturdy that you can get your band hooked up to. So right here, I'm using a squat rack. You can use a heavy bed, a couch, a banister, something that's not going to slide when you hook your band up to it, and then floor space. So you don't necessarily need to have a mat, but you need somewhere where you can lay and set up the band. So for this one, we're using the band to assist the stretch. So the stretches will look pretty familiar to most people. It'll look like a hip flexor stretch when we're kneeling, and a figure 4 stretch for your hip when you're on your back. The band is trying to help assist move the femur a little bit differently and actually stretch the hip socket and the connective tissue more. So sometimes when we get into stretches, people don't quite feel enough of a stretch. They feel like something's moving, but maybe they're not getting the stretch sensation that they're looking for, or their muscles are flexible enough that they're getting into that position, but they're not quite getting the joint to move the way that we want it to. So the band helps to accentuate that a little bit and get the joint moving better. Now, if you have more tightness on the other side, or your hip as a whole just feels kind of clammed up and stiff, you can get into a hip flexor stretch position to try to stretch the capsule on the front side of the hip. So with that one, we go into kneeling. We grab our band again, but this time we want it on the back side of our thigh. So we have to step through it and have it really high on the thigh of the leg that we're stretching. So it's right under my butt there. And then the other leg is gonna go up into that lunge position. Because in a hip flexor stretch, when you're kneeling, the leg that's down is the one that's being stretched. So from here, I'll lift my shirt up a little bit. The first thing we do once we get that pressure on the band is tuck your pelvis. So think about your tailbone, squeeze your butt just a little bit to tuck underneath. Once you get that little bit of a tuck, you should already feel an increased stretch right here in the front of your hip. And from here, you just gently shift forward into that other leg to get even more of a stretch. I like to hold this one a little bit longer too, like I said, to give that fascia and the muscles time to open up and to relax. But after you've given it some time, 20 to 30 seconds here, then you can go into some nice little oscillations, keeping that tuck. You can even go from untuck to tuck, or tuck the pelvis and then shift forward a little bit. It really doesn't take much, especially if you have tightness in your hip. If I see somebody doing this, they're not really stretching that hip, they're stretching everything else in between. So it shouldn't look like a split, even if you're doing it without the band. So again, a nice little tuck of the pelvis, think about tucking your tail underneath, and then a gentle shift forward. You can put the band in different positions. We always want it to be really high up on the hip, but you can do it pulling forward, backward, out to the side in different exercises to see how that might help you with your squat depths, pain-free sitting, all kinds of things. So let me know if you have any questions and we can try to help you.